The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight into dental school, conversations with dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Haley Schultz. Let's get into this week's episode. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right away from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, but also everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available, and you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Did I mention it is totally free, no catch? I've been using Spotify for Podcasters since the very beginning of my show, and now we're nearing our 200th episode, so I can definitely say it's an easy platform, and I've really loved using it. So be sure to download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, everyone, we have another guest here today. So I'm going to let Dr. Liu introduce yourself a little bit. Can you just tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here, Haley. My name is Dr. Noel Liu, and I'm a general dentist based in Peoria, Illinois. I practice alongside my wife, who is also, my partner at the at our organization, and we both are dentists, and we are passionate about our patients and our team. So currently, we operate about 11 locations, and we're expanding into Tennessee as well. We started back in 2012. That's when we opened up our first practice. I graduated in 2007, and she graduated in 2011. Both NYU City grads, since we graduated, I worked for about 4 years. My wife worked for about, 6 months to a year until, I pulled her in. I was like, all right, let's go. And that's when we founded Secure Dental. And since then, it's been a roller coaster ride there, Haley. We've been up and down like any entrepreneurs. We think about dentistry as dentistry only when we open up practices. Little do we know that it's a full-on business. And that is something where I feel like a lot of dental students need to realize that we're going to be wearing all the hats, and it's an emotional roller coaster throughout the journey. So that is what we experienced. Lots of mistakes, lots of years spent, lots of money burned, lots of resources. But you know what? With that being said, there's been a lot of successes as well. So it's always a journey, but we always have the goal in mind, and that's where we are. And that's a little bit just to wrap everything up in a little nutshell where we are.
That's an awesome intro, and I'm excited to kind of break that down and talk a little bit more about your experiences and some of those lessons learned. How did you end up in Illinois from dental school in New York?
Perfect question. So this was fourth year. I was sitting in a room, and I was going through the emails, and I was seeing all these job offers, and I was getting confused. Like, should I do GPR? Should I do, resident? Specialty was never one of my options. So I was thinking GPR, and I was looking at private practice. I was looking at corporate dentistry, DSOs, and like any D4 student, you're always confused what to do. So I just hopped on this one opportunity where these guys came over as a recruiting team. The next thing I knew, I was looking at this contract, and we negotiated terms, and I signed up, and they had an office in Rockford, Illinois. And I'd never been to Illinois before, never been to Rockford. Leap of faith. I just took it, and we jumped. And the next thing I knew, I was there for about 4 years. So that's how I ended up in Illinois. And ever since, I think we just stuck here and never moved out. But what we decided was we'll make this our base, and then we'll expand out with our team of doctors and other team members.
So in those first 4 years, you said when you were working as an associate with another group, what are some of the lessons you kind of learned, and how did you apply them when you started Secure Dental?
Here's the thing. Number one, get a mentor. Never had one. Learn the basics from other people who are doing it. Try to minimize risk and maximize production. And how do you do that? Again, you need a mentor. You need to get the ropes. I mean, Haley, here's the thing: when we get out of school, we are not so aware about all the legalities, what happens with malpractice, all the CDT codes, what codes are right, what codes are wrong. We pretty much just follow suit with what the other guy's doing around us, and not necessarily they're doing the right thing. So I say surround yourself and network with lots of dental students, lots of practice owners, lots of people who've even retired, and they can give you good skills. But one thing I would tell everybody is get someone who is doing it, number one, not somebody who's just preaching, right? Get someone who has a track record and someone who has financial, like, I wouldn't call it intelligence, but financial know-hows. Because, when we go to our faculties, this is my personal experience, when we go to faculties, sorry to say, but, they wouldn't be a faculty if they were really financially successful. So you got to put everything into perspective. And as a student, when you get out, we have to start seeing the whole picture, not just one aspect. And that really helps when you're looking for a first associate, position.
So you talked about finding a mentor. Is there anything else that dental students can do now to be more prepared for when they start working?
Personal development, key number one. Set a goal, set a target. What do you want to achieve? And what is the timeline? Before graduation, even before that, like if you're going to look for a position, one should look for what is their end goal? Are they trying to be us? Are they going to apply for specialty later on? Is it an area of dentistry that they really want to focus on, like implants or aesthetics? Is there something like, they really like? So with that goal in mind, get your first position, get that mentor, and just put the head down and just keep working, right? And one thing I would like to say is just swallow the pride, okay? Because when you do that, you're humble, you will learn a lot.
I'd love to talk now about your experience with starting up Secure Dental. Can you walk us through a little bit of what that looked like?
Yes. So every endeavor is different. So for someone looking to starting a practice, a couple of things to look out for. Where do they want to stay first? Number one, location is the key, right? Number two is, are you buying an existing, like an acquisition, or is it a de novo startup? So that's number two. Number three, is it going to be a leased space, like like an office building or a strip plaza, or one's going to buy their own building, right? So when that part is set of the location, what kind of building, is it a lease and ownership, then the next target is, who are you serving, right? Knowing your audience, knowing your patients. Because little do we understand, we just open up a practice and just go like, hope for the best. That is not the best way to start, right? So we need to find out like, hey, who's our audience, who's our target, and let's get those guys and let's target that market. But before anything else, be really, really comfortable, be really efficient in basic general dentistry, bread and butter dentistry. So I call it this way. It's like a pyramid. When we graduate, we are right at the base. This is where we're doing all the, SRPs, all the hygiene work, all the restoratives, all that good stuff there. As you get more skilled and more experience, you kind of keep climbing up the ladder, and it's a vertical upward from there. And that's where you try to find your little niche, what you're good at. Like, is it aligners? Is it aesthetics? Is it implants, full arch, single? There's a lot of different areas and aspects and avenues you can go to. Once you figure that out, then you want to see like, hey, where are my target audience and who do we market, what zip code? And then that's where the whole marketing department comes in. So lots of little niche and gritty details, but I think we need a separate one for that.
So did you start with just one office and then you've slowly been expanding? How did that look?
Correct. We started with one office in 2012, my wife and I. So we did that, and we always had a goal in mind to expand. But here's the thing: it's not about the location. I know a lot of dental students, like some of the other like NYU dental students I spoke with. Some of them came up with a question is, hey, how do I open up multiple locations? And I want to do like 20 practices, 30 practices. It sounds really good, but in reality, it's not. Okay. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice. But when you understand the whole dynamics and the basis of expansion, scaling, and operations, that's when I would say, one's ready to expand. But with a single office, when we started, just do the basics really, really good, pound it day after day, night after night, and just get really good and just keep going vertical, like I just mentioned. Once when somebody comes vertical, I mean, you don't even have to expand. As long as the revenue keeps growing in that one practice and you've like really, really like maxed out, then we can talk about location number two. But till then, just stick with that one and just make it happen.
What are some things you think someone should kind of internalize and reflect about to figure out if they are better suited to go the ownership route or to stay as an associate?
Well, a lot of times it's the personal lives that dictates which route you want to go. I have a lot of friends, actually, they are still associating. Nothing wrong with that. They love their job. They just love the hours. They don't have to take work home. Somebody else manages all the headaches with the business aspect. They just get paid. Life's great, right? And then we have the savvy entrepreneur who wants to go out and conquer the world. That's the other aspect. So the best mix, I would say, is like kind of in the middle, like you are associating, but then you try to find your niche. If you really like that position and you are able to practice everything that you want to do in that position, and you don't want the headache, then just stay with it. Nothing wrong with it. There's also like, you can talk about options for buyout or maybe an option for, partnership or a small portion of the bigger pie. So there's a lot of different options out there, or even open up your own practice, but somebody else like a DSO or somebody you can, partner with, they can manage a business aspect and all the admin, and you still focus on dentistry. So there's no right and wrong answer, and there's no like left and right. It's just so personalized, right? Like what one's looking for.
Yeah, that's great advice. I want to kind of transition the conversation a little bit because I know you were touched a little bit about finances, and that's something else you like to help out us dental students with some education on. So I know a lot of dental students and new grads are kind of overwhelmed with their financial situation and trying to work towards their goals. How have you kind of worked in investments and other ways to reach your financial goals?
So I always look at two aspects. I'm looking at the expense and the income. My biggest investment that I have started, which is just not just recent, not even that old. I mean, I started really investing in real estate. The reason, because once we get out, I mean, as dental students, we are broke, right? We are not able to produce anything. We're actually living off loans or our parents' money or something along those lines, right? But once when we graduate, we have the 6-digit figure income coming in. And honestly, we go berserk. We go buy all the best stuff, all the best bags, all the best cars. Now, what ends up happening is our lifestyle and our income, it catches up. When it does, that's when we hit red line, right? So we are called the new broke. As a dental student, start having a goal in mind that once let's say 100 grand, you graduate, the first year you make 100 grand. Right off the bat, start thinking about, okay, you know what? Let's take half off, put it towards taxes, put it towards, something where like maybe taxes is like 40%. Let's take the other 10% and let's put it as emergency savings. The other 50%, save another 20% and keep it on the side and live off that 30%, right? Do not change the lifestyle initially. That's my biggest advice in finances. And as far as student debt, I understand it's a lot, but don't try to pay that off within the first 5 years. Okay, that's my advice. I understand it's accumulating quite a bit. What you want to do is you want to start producing your main thing, which is our dentistry. Get the ROI really, really high up there. Like invest in yourself, then invest in letting the money work for you. Then you start slowly bringing the debt down afterwards. But at first, just build.
Mm-hmm. And you'll have more to be able to pay down the debt with later than
exactly. And now when you start paying off the debt, basically it's your passive income, your active income is a combination. So it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned real estate. Can you we talked about like, how do you know if you're good to be an owner, if you have the traits? What are some traits or skill sets people need if they want to get involved in real estate investment?
Here's my advice to every single doctor, like, because we also have a real estate group for our dentists and doctors, right? So one thing we always keep focusing on is our main thing should be our main thing. And, I just said that earlier. You just need to focus on what we're doing as patients, as doctors and dentists. Don't try to be a real estate owner at that time. Because for us dentists, what are we looking for is, okay, real estate, let's own a single family home. Let's own a short-term Airbnb. Let's do this, let's do that. That is really taking away time from our practices and our patients. And the ROI is not worth it. It may be worth it for, somebody else, like, who's making less. But for us as high income earners, which you will soon to be, right? You need to understand your time is money and money is time, right? So real estate comes in play only when you've secured enough cash flow coming in from your main business. Now you take that cash flow, instead of blowing it away, let's invest it and let that money work for you. Start day one, like first year, right out of school. You don't have to invest that much. Save up 50 grand, put it towards a deal. Next year, you do the same, save up another 50 grand, put it towards a deal. Trust me, if you don't do that, that 50 grand is going to go either in a car, in a purse, at a house, or something along those lines. So be disciplined. And if you do that over the next 5 to 10 years, that student loan is going to be paid off.
So you've kind of talked about this. It was something else I wanted to go over with you. Would you recommend working on kind of building up your different streams of income, building up those dental skills, having a lot of money saved before you go and buy a practice, or focus on the practice first, have that as your main income source, and then get into real estate? Like, which avenue do you think makes the most sense?
This is a great question. This is the same exact thing I mentor my own doctors in our organization. So one of the things, we mentor a lot of dentistry. I make sure that, they got it dialed right. But one of the aspects is I always tell them, let's work towards a goal, because my ultimate goal is for every single of my doctors to get out and do their own. But of course, that's not true in all the cases. So one of my main thing is, I always say that do your dentistry first. If you're looking for opening up a practice, let's do that first. Do not invest in real estate. Put all that money towards the practice. Let's get that rolling. Let's get that jump started. Because, initially when you open up a practice, it's like a black hole. Okay. It sucks up cash like anything. So you need to be prepared for that. That working capital the bank gives you, it's not enough. It's a brutal honesty. I'm telling you, they'll say, hey, we'll give you 50 grand, 75 grand to open up, but you will blow that up in no time, because marketing, operations, payroll, all that takes time. Unless if you're buying an acquisition and then you're trying to do that, then you can really get it up and running in about a year or maybe a year and a half to the next level. When that's established, now take that money and start putting in towards real estate, but not before that.
So my kind of understanding of acquisition versus startup is acquisitions can be great if it's the right practice. Is that kind of where your thought process is? Or are you always in favor of doing a startup and having complete control from the get-go?
No, here's the thing. If you're doing an acquisition, right, just got to make sure the team, the culture, everything in there, it's aligned with your core values and your belief system. Because if they're not, what ends up happening is, from my experience and experience that I've seen from my colleagues, it's the doctor leaves, half the team leaves because everybody's favors the doc, and then you have 50% decay on patients. So at the end of the day, you're looking at, I just purchased this practice for 700 or a million, whatever. What did I get out of this? Did I just get an empty shell with a building and equipment? Okay. So understand that will happen, as long as you can go in with the mindset that you will lose 50%. So I always use 50% as a rule, of 50% rule. You'll lose 50% of the staff, you lose 50% of the income, you lose 50% of the patients once the doctor's gone. Can you sustain on that remaining 50 and make it into 150? If you could, it's a good buy.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. So we've talked about a ton, and you've given a lot of great insight and things for listeners to think about. But for dental students or new grads listening, do you have any final take-home message you want them to think about?
Yes. So I would always say, whenever we as dentists, we are trying to achieve something new, we always looking for strategies, tips, and tricks. In reality, it's 80% psychological. All right. And it's 20%. It's like when you go on a nutritional diet or any kind of workout, we all understand like everybody wants to lose weight fast, but it's 80% diet, 20% exercise, right? Same exact thing here. 80% is psychological. Right here, invest in the mindset, have goal setting, know what you want, and always, always, always focus on what you want and what you have rather than focusing on what you don't have. And that's where I think a lot of people get caught in that negative mindset. They always see like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. And that's where you come from, a state of unresourcefulness. So I would say always focus on what you got. Take it as a sign that, big things are going to happen. Right. So that's my message to them. Do not worry about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. Just let it unfold, but just focus on yourself.
I love that. That's so important. I always kind of talk about mindset on my podcast. I'm happy to hear that. So what is the best way for people to follow along with you or reach out to you if they have questions or want to learn more?
Oh, absolutely. My site is Dr. Noel Liu DDS. Instagram is Dr. Dr. Noelliu. And that's the best way to get a hold of me, DM me, tag me, whatever. And I'd love to participate.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Hilly. Thanks for having me.